Here's something that surprises a lot of people. Persia and Iran are the same country. Not related countries, not neighbors, the same place, just separated by a name change most of the world didn't fully understand until decades after it happened. And that name change is actually the perfect entry point into this story, because Iran's entire history is basically one long pattern: get conquered, get renamed, get reshaped by outsiders, and somehow, every single time, come out the other side still unmistakably itself. No other civilization on Earth has been invaded, absorbed, and reinvented quite this many times by quite this many empires and still kept its own identity intact. Persians, Greeks, Arabs, Mongols, Turks, Russians, the British, all of them at some point tried to leave their mark on this land. This is the story of how one civilization survived every single one of them. Let's go all the way back to the beginning. Long before anyone said the word Persia, there was Elam, one of the oldest civilizations on Earth, rising in what's now southwestern Iran more than 5,000 years ago, roughly the same era as early Mesopotamia and Egypt. Elam isn't a household name today, but it should be. Its capital, Susa, became one of the great cities of the ancient world, a hub of trade, writing, and political power that lasted for nearly 3,000 years, trading blows and ideas with Mesopotamian powers like Sumer, Akkad, and Babylon the entire time. Elam laid the geographic and cultural groundwork for everything that came next. When the Persians eventually rose to power in this same region, they didn't inherit an empty landscape. They inherited millennia of civilization already built into the land beneath them. Around 550 BCE, a Persian king named Cyrus II, known to history as Cyrus the Great, began uniting the region's scattered kingdoms into something the world had never quite seen before: the Achaemenid Empire, the first empire in history to stretch across 3 continents, from the edges of Europe and Egypt to the borders of India. But Cyrus is remembered for more than conquest. After capturing Babylon, he reportedly freed the Jewish exiles held there and allowed them to return home and rebuild their temple, an act referenced in the Hebrew Bible itself. He's also associated with the Cyrus cylinder, an ancient clay artifact sometimes described as one of the earliest known declarations of religious tolerance and fair treatment of conquered peoples, though historians debate exactly how modern its ideas really were by today's standards. His successors kept expanding. Darius I organized the empire into provinces called satrapies, built the famous royal road connecting the empire with astonishing speed for its time, and constructed Persepolis, a ceremonial capital so architecturally advanced it still leaves visitors speechless 2,500 years later. At its peak, the Achaemenid Empire ruled an estimated 40 to 50% of the world's population. Let that sink in. Nearly half of every human being alive at the time lived under Persian rule. It eventually fell in 330 BCE when Alexander the Great swept through and burned Persepolis to the ground. But here's the pattern beginning already. The empire fell, the civilization didn't. Somewhere in this same era, scholars debate exactly when, anywhere from 1500 to 500 BCE, a Persian prophet named Zoroaster introduced a religion that would end up influencing far more than Persia itself: Zoroastrianism. It introduced ideas that feel strikingly familiar today: a single supreme god, a cosmic struggle between good and evil, concepts of heaven, hell, and a final judgment of the soul. Many historians and religious scholars have argued that these ideas, encountered during periods of close contact between Persian and Jewish communities, may have influenced later theological developments in Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, though this remains a topic of ongoing academic debate rather than settled consensus. Either way, Zoroastrianism became Persia's dominant faith for over 1,000 years, and its core beliefs and fire temples still exist today, practiced by a small but enduring global community. After the Achaemenids fell, Persia didn't stay down for long. The Parthian Empire rose around 247 BCE, and it did something almost no other power of its era managed. It consistently held its own against Rome. At the legendary Battle of Carrhae in 53 BCE, Parthian cavalry devastated a massive Roman army, using a tactic still referenced today, the Parthian shot, horse archers firing arrows backward at full gallop while retreating. It's such an effective, cheeky maneuver that we still use the phrase parting shot in everyday English, likely derived from it. Then came the Sassanid Empire, rising in 224 CE, Persia's last great pre-Islamic empire, and Rome's, later Byzantium's, most serious rival for over 400 years. The Sassanids revived Persian art, architecture, and Zoroastrian religious authority, creating a golden age that rivaled anything happening in Europe at the time. Two ancient superpowers locked in centuries of rivalry. Neither one saw what was coming next. In the 7th century, Arab-Muslim armies swept out of the Arabian Peninsula, and by 651 CE, the once mighty Sassanid Empire had fallen. Persia was now part of the growing Islamic world. Here's where most conquered civilizations in history quietly fade into the culture of their conquerors. Persia didn't. Instead, something remarkable happened. Persian language, literature, and administrative expertise became essential to the Islamic world itself. Persian scholars, poets, scientists, and bureaucrats didn't just survive the conquest. They became some of the most influential minds in the entire Islamic Golden Age, shaping science, poetry, and philosophy for centuries. Persia converted to Islam, but it never stopped being Persia. It absorbed a new religion the same way it had absorbed conquerors before, by making it unmistakably its own. Then, in the 13th century, came the closest thing to a civilizational apocalypse Persia ever faced, the Mongol invasions. Cities like Nishapur and Merv, once thriving centers of learning and culture, were devastated, with staggering losses of life. It's genuinely one of the darkest chapters in Persian history, and for a moment it looked like this might be finally the empire that stayed down for good. It wasn't. Within a few generations, the Mongol rulers who settled in Persia, known as the Ilkhanate, began adopting Persian culture, language, and administrative systems themselves. The conquerors, once again, got quietly absorbed into the thing they'd conquered. Centuries later, in 1501, the Safavid dynasty rose to power and made a decision that still shapes Iran's identity today. They established Shia Islam as the empire's official religion, distinguishing Persia religiously from most of its Sunni-majority neighbors. Under Shah Abbas the Great, the Safavid capital of Isfahan became one of the most magnificent cities on earth, so beautiful it inspired the Persian saying, "Isfahan is half the world." Grand architecture, flourishing trade, and a renewed sense of distinct Persian Shia identity all took root here, a version of Persian culture that modern Iran still directly traces itself back to. Fast forward to the 20th century. After a long, turbulent period under the Qajar dynasty, Reza Shah Pahlavi took power in 1925 and set out to modernize the country. In 1935, his government made a formal request to the international community: stop calling the country Persia, a name that came from ancient Greek references to just one southern province, and start using the name Iranians had actually called their own homeland for centuries: Iran, meaning land of the Aryans. The world gradually complied. The 20th century brought enormous change. Modernization under the Pahlavi monarchy, followed by the 1979 Islamic Revolution, which replaced the monarchy with the Islamic Republic of Iran that governs the country today. Whole political systems rose and fell in the span of a single century, yet another chapter in a 5,000-year pattern of transformation without disappearance. Elam, the Achaemenids, the Parthians, the Sassanids, Islamic Persia, the Ilkhanate Mongol ruled. the Safavids, the Pahlavis, the Islamic Republic. Different rulers, different religions, different names even, but threading through every single one of those chapters is the same unbroken civilization, absorbing empire after empire, and somehow, every time, remaining unmistakably itself.